Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 89 of the classic wrestling series. Ladies and gentlemen, last week we looked at Backlash 2002, and it was a very good show, I thought. But tonight, I thought we'd go back to a wrestling company I enjoy so much, WCW! Kill me, now I'm joking. But why don't we go back to the year of my birth, and let's check out WCW from 1993, and let's watch for Brawl from September 19th and 93. So, our first matchup is Lord Stevenrigo versus Ricky Steamboat for the World TV title. Let's do this. So, we just had Stevenrigo versus Steamboat for the World TV title, and not a good match. It was okay, but not to the extent of a Stevenrigo or a Steamboat match. These two, they were okay together, but it just felt a bit sloppy, I thought. Steamboat has got ribs injuries, and I just don't know. It was something off about it. I can't really put it to my mind. Also, finish of the match was Mr. Sir William, who is Regal's manager. It clocks Steamboat in the head with an umbrella, then a German suplex for the Uno, Dos, Tres. Don't like that, but plays into a story of Regal being a prick. End of story. So next up we had the Nasty Boys talking about the Horsemen. Nasty Boys are going for the tag team titles against the Horsemen. It is, I believe it's Arn Anderson, so we get an Arn Anderson match on this show. Yes, very happy about that. Next up it's Big Sky versus Charlie Novice. Never heard of either of these two men, so let's watch this match, shall we? So we just had Big Sky versus Charlie Novice. Charlie Novice just reminds me of a dollar store Tatanka. No offense. It does remind me of Tatanka a bit. This was ineffective. It was a match. It was a 4-minute match, and there wasn't really anything of note. No offense, guys. Nothing bad, but nothing good. Next up, Scott Dulop interviews Davey Boy Smith. Interesting fact, ladies and gentlemen. Scott Dunlop is the Dunlop. Yes, Dunlop. Dunlop. My apologies. Is the world's only Cerebral Palsy affiliated wrestling announcer. I never knew that. It was an okay promo. I mean, it's Davey Boy Smith talking about the War Games match. Nothing, a lot of people be like, okay, fair enough. But yeah, it was a good promo from Davey Boy at the end of the day. So next up we have Paul Orndorf and the Equalizer versus Marcus Babwell and Two Cold Scorpio. Let's watch this. So we just had Paul Orndorf and the Equalizer versus Babwell and Two Cold Scorpio. It was a tag team match, don't get me wrong. I mean, it was a fun tag team match. Marcus Babwell, this is before the neck injury, if I recall, and also before he was known as Marcus Buffwell. So yeah. And also, this is before Flash Funk for Two Cold Scorpio. Paul Orndorff's a good wrestler. The Equalizer looked a bit, looked okay. Looked like it wasn't his first rodeo, to be fair. A beautiful 450 splash from Scorpio to get the win for his team. And yeah, it was a good showing from both men, I have to admit that. But again, it just looked a bit weird with the Equalizer just being there. Now we've got Lord Stevenrigo, still in his wrestling gear, somehow. And Sir William talking about the win for his person. So, yeah, let's carry on watching the show and see our next contest, which I believe Shangri-La-Pierre versus Ice Train. No idea. Let's watch this one though. Ice Train versus vslassengerpierre, apparently it's pronounced. This was a match. It's probably the worst match of the night. Maybe, I don't admit. It was quick and painless. Ice Train gets the win after a power slam. But yeah, it wasn't the best match, but it did what it did, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day. So can't really complain about that. Next up, we will be having our tag team title matches, the Nasty Boys versus the Horseman. So let's watch that. So we just had the Nasty Boys versus the Horseman. Missy Hyatt comes out with the Nasty Boys to be their manager now. No idea. I have to admit, this is one of my favourite Nasty Boy matches. I'm not a massive fan of the Nasty Boys, I will grant you that one. But against Arn Anderson and Paul Roma, yeah, these four men put on a good match, and I have to admit, Paul Roma was very good in this match. I have to check out a couple more matches of his, actually. I will grant you that one. But the Nasty Boys win after an elbow to the back of Paul Roma's head. Even though, the Horsemen get the visual pin. It was a good matchup, It was a slow tag team, old school match, which I do enjoy. Nasty's being the heels and the Horsemen being the faces. And yeah, it was very entertaining. It was a good matchup. So we'll see what our next matchup is and get to that one then. So we just had Yoshi Kwan being played. Chris Champion is his real life, his name, versus Cactus Jack. This was okay. I mean, it was a bounty match. It leads into, it carries on the story of Cactus Jack versus Vader. So this was a bounty match. Again, going into it. It was entertaining. It was a good match. Don't get me wrong. Cactus wins with the double arm DDT. But yeah, it was a fun match, entertaining. These two worked well together. It was about 4 or 5 minutes, so it wasn't too long, but it did its job. So our next matchup, I believe, is Rude versus Flair for the international WCW Championship. And then we have War Games. So let's get to the next match. Okay, so we just had Rick Rude versus Ric Flair for the world title, and I have to admit, this was a really fun matchup between the two. To be fair, it's Rude versus Flair, so of course it'd be good. Entertaining. This is Rick Rude's first title win as well, after getting the brass knuckles bonking Flair on the face and getting pinned. Fifi didn't play as much of a role as I think she would have, but she did play a bit of a role to cost Flair the belt. But again, this is, it's Flair versus Rude. It's really good. So next up, guys, we have our main event. It is the War Games match. So we'll get into that right now. So I just had the War Games match. Team Vader versus Team Sting. Just tell you who entered the match when. Vader was first for Team Vader. Then Dustin Rhodes was first out for Team Sting. Stevie Ray was next. Sting was fourth. Sid Vicious was fifth. Davey Boy Smith was sixth. Booker T was seventh, and Shotmaster was eighth. This was an okay War Games. It's not one of the best War Games. War Games was more entangled with the Horseman era of WCW. It was made for the Horseman, to be honest with you. But all in all, it was a fun matchup, I have to admit. Booker T surrendered to the Shotmaster after a bear hug, so it's one of those things where one of those things could happen. But it was a good matchup. It was entertaining as all hell, and yeah, it was a good show. So, what did I think of it? Yeah, it was entertaining. Worst match of the night was definitely the Ice Train match. God, that sucked. Best match? Probably Rude versus Flair. I mean, that was really good. Then it's Rude versus Flair, so yeah, it was entertaining. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's episode 89 of the Classic Wrestling Series, Out of Sight, Out of Mind, Out of Pocket. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I will see you next week for episode 90 as well as AEW. I will see you next week. TTFN.